Welcome to From Stardust to Us, in-depth conversations with thought leaders, artists, and spiritual activists, navigating the challenges of our times with integrity, joy, and purpose. I'm Bernice Marie Daly.
And I'm Linnell Hayden. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate our listeners. You can find us on YouTube, Buzzsprout, or any place where podcasts are found. If you enjoy our conversation, please help us reach more people by subscribing, liking, and commenting. So let's get into this week's conversation.
Welcome, John. Welcome. We are so glad to see you back with us on From Stardust to Us. Yeah, we really have enjoyed our time together, and we were looking forward to being with you again, and so appreciate that.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you guys so much for bringing me back. I felt so energized and connected to you guys when we spoke, and when you when you generously invited me to jump back in, I was like, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, some of our listeners may not have had the benefit of that first time round. So let me, if I will, introduce you then to our listeners. So John Roedel is a comic who unexpectedly gained notability as a writer and poet through his heartfelt Facebook conversations that went viral and became an Amazon best-selling book titled Hey God, Hey John. So now John is the author of 8 books, and the most recent being And Now a Word from Your Ghost, offering a sincere and very relatable look at his faith crisis, mental health, personal struggles, perception of our world, and even his fashion sense. John's writing has been shared millions of times across social media and lauded by fans and readers worldwide. Now he teaches at universities and retreat centers across the United States and Europe, blending his trademark comedy with creative exercises, journaling, dialogue, and introspection to help people fearlessly embrace and share their personal stories. So last we spoke, which we think is about a year and a half, 2 years ago, it would seem to me that the question I should ask you is, hey, what's new? But what I would really like to ask you is, what's it been like for you to move from Facebook to universities to across the country? This has been a roly-doly time. Please
Yeah,
tell us.
when we first started speaking, I think that adventures had just started. I was just starting to get asked to go to yoga centers, and for
Right.
me, like I don't know anything about yoga. Like I call it public weeping whenever I've been asked to do yoga. So I was asked to go to these holistic centers where they do mind body connection, and it's very holistic, and I'd never been to any of those places before. I'm shaped like a penguin, so I don't really do yoga. So I was asked to go to these places, and over the last few years, I've been traveling and giving people. I think this is if I could narrow it down to one sentence, I love to give people permission to write terribly, to go to a space where it's not performative. It's not about
Mm,
judgment or critiquing or getting out
mm,
the red marker and being like, oh, how can we make this a bestseller or any of that? But how do we connect authentically to the voice inside of us, the energy inside of us? Some people might call it the divine spark inside of them. Some people are like,
mhm,
no, it's my own consciousness. Whatever it is, I'm not telling anyone what it is. But how do we get out of our own way, get that critiquing part of our own brain, out of our way, and just jump in to our authentic selves? And because that's where my writing journey began, was from a place of, I was a comic and I was teaching improv, and it was all about
mm.
saying yes to what's there on the stage and
Right.
not bringing expectations to it. And so
Mm,
really that's what we go and do. We write without expectation, and we see where it takes you. And for me, it took me into poetry, into conversations with God, in which
right.
I started kind of unfolding myself in real time, all these parts of myself that had been hidden for decades.
Right.
When I was able to just show up to the page without any expectation or worrying about if it's good, or worrying about what people will think, or even worrying about what I think, and just say yes over and over again. So over the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of that and going to
Yeah.
places and giving people opportunities to write in the feral, wild, chaotic way in which I try to write.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I have a wonderful quote from around the campfire, a comment that you did recently. And there is a series, a litany, if you will, of what you said you are not, followed by this phrase, my heart has become a river. I really wanted you to talk about that. And then it occurred to me, hey, the listeners are not going to know what I'm talking about necessarily. So if I may, I'd like to read that section that touched me so much.
Thank you.
So this is from Substack Around the Campfire. I am not a guru. I am not a priest. I am not a lawmaker. I am not a neurosurgeon. I am not splitting atoms. I am not piloting Air Force One. I am not building rockets. I am not an engineer who builds bridges over lakes. I am not running for office. I am not here to hold power over the world. I am here to let the world hold me. I am not trying to be taken seriously. I want to be taken softly. I am a poet who writes about how my heart has become a river.
Yeah, and that's, when you ask me what's new, that's really what I'm working on. It's this, ego. People talk about ego death, and this idea of that happening. I don't know about death for me. My ego is very, and I've done a lot of comedy on stage, and you have to develop a callus over your ego, and I've given it superpowers. So my ego is never going to quite ever go away. I'm like, it's not going to die, but it's ego softening. It's ego, just taking some of it, the power away from me. And that's what I mean is like, I want to not, I am not in control of a lot what happens in my life. Now that I've been alive 51 years, I can control how I react to things or what decisions I will make based on what happens to me. But I have very little control over all the things that I thought like 30 years ago. I thought this is what my life plan is going to be, X, Y, Z, and it's going to be this wonderful, easy story. And it's been a lot harder. The difficulty level gets turned up a little bit more every year. And once I realized over the last few years, it's not about forcing things to happen that I want to happen or that my ego or my vanity want to happen. It's about treating this like a roller coaster. I am on the ride. We're going up. Oh my gosh, we're going up. Oh my God, we're going down. Oh, here we go. And I have
crashing, we're crashing.
That's right. And it's enjoying the ride. And when you're on a river, that's what it is. Like I spent a couple weeks on a river trip, and I'm an indoor cat. So me being in an outdoor 2 week long river trip was completely out of my comfort zone. But we paddled for 8 hours a day, and you never know what's around the next river bend. All you're doing is like, I'm just doing this. I am paddling. I am paddling. I'm going to look over here. And oh my gosh, look at those rock formations. Oh my gosh, look over here. Oh, look over there. There's some sort of terrifying creature. It's not all roses, but I mean, you just have to. I want it to unfold. I want my life to unfold in that way where I'm not going to have expectations about what next year will be. I just want to keep paddling my way there and be amazed by whatever is there. And with my heart, it's the same way. I want my heart and my emotions. A lot of my struggles in my life before I started writing were about me trying to control how I felt and be like, oh, I need to respond this way. I need to be angrier. I need to be more joyful. It's like being on stage in comedy improv. The rule is you get up there and you just let it flow. And whatever the audience gives you, you lean into it and you embrace it and you send yes, full throated. But I wasn't living that in my life. And so the idea of the river, my heart being a river, is I got to flow with it. When I feel sad, but I want to feel happy, don't worry about what I want. Let myself feel sad. And that's when it doesn't take root in me, when I let it pass through me. And that's where writing, I write about how I feel, and that keeps the river moving. And it keeps me stuck in a single place or a single emotion for too long. And that's the best way I can explain it. And that piece I
Right.
wrote in that, where I know how I kind of felt. I felt confused that morning. You can see that it starts with like, I know this isn't who I am. And
Right.
as I
Right.
wrote, it started to come to me, but who are you?
Right.
I didn't know where that piece was going until I got to that moment. I want my heart to be a river. And it's that turn. It's that like third act surprise in the play.
Right. Well, I was just so touched by that line. I said, I just got to talk to John about this.
No, and and I often write things. I'm like, that's what I've been trying to get at. The 9 stanzas or 8 paragraphs before that, I finally found the one line I was looking for, and that's what
Yeah.
I love about this process. Of when I go around and talk to people about writing, it doesn't. You don't have to. We have this stuck in our head. Oh, I have to be a good writer. I have to be. People have to be impressed by it. It's like sure, but sometimes if you just sit down and you write for 5 minutes, you bump into one singular sentence or thought, and you're like, oh, wow,
That's it.
that's what this is.
Yeah.
There's the gold. I had to dig through all this mud and I had to sift through it. And there's one sparkling piece of gold. And that's how I write. I unearth a lot of ground and pour it out. And then you just start filtering and looking through it. But that's not going to happen unless you just get as much out there as you can. And that's how I write. I don't edit my things on Facebook or Substack. I write, and I like to people see the homework on this margins of how I got to it. I don't like going back
Okay.
and editing and cutting out. It's like, oh, this would. I'm certain that's probably why I'm not published. Like I don't have like an agent. I don't seek that. But I don't want. I want people to see the struggle I had while writing it to get to
Totally.
that exact moment that you saw.
That's a good metaphor for just life, isn't it?
Yes.
Just be messy and sift through the muck and then get to the
Yeah.
gold line.
Yeah, it's there. And it's just like that in my life. I'm constantly not doing that. I'm looking straight ahead. I'm not looking to what's already here in front of me, or I'm looking behind at regret or guilt.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking to, I'm not seeing what's right in my hands because I'm too busy looking forward or behind me.
Mm.
And writing, it slows everything down. Time stands still a little bit. And I'm able to go into the future and the past, but most importantly, I can stay in the present right there in the moment and talk about what's happening now. A river doesn't care what it looked like 20 years ago. A river is not worried about what's going to look like in 3,000 years. A river's only concerned about what I am right now. And what is that saying? You can't step into the same river twice.
Mm.
And I feel that about myself. Every time I go inside of myself to write, it's not the same that it was yesterday. I've changed just a little bit more. Something's happened over the course of 24 hours where I'm a little bit different of a person. So it's kind of I get to reintroduce myself a little bit every single day when I write.
You know, there's a phrase in the Bible that pops up quite often called be not afraid, or it's be not afraid. And that's sort of, I was reminded of that just listening to your journey, because where you sort of, you have this broken open heart that you just pour out on the page. And I think that's why so many of your posts go viral and your books are so popular, and you give people permission to do that for themselves, just to pour themselves out on the page. You have gotten out of your comfort zone so many times, going into yoga studios and whatnot. I mean, a lot of people may not know, who aren't familiar with your work or haven't listened to the first interview, that you actually were raised in Wyoming, this rough and tumble cowboy country, you know, gun culture.
Yes.
And so, you know, to hear your journey, it's, you know, quite amazing that you have given yourself permission to be fearless in your expression, your soul expression. And there's one post that really hit me hard, a recent one on Substack called Bloodlust Celibacy.
Yes.
And that was really, you know, just, yeah. So there's so many layers to that post, Bloodlust Celibacy. But I want to start with just how you started. And I would like you to take us back to that moment where you say you walked into a cathedral of guns.
Yeah. So yeah, you really set the stage well. I've grown up in Wyoming. We recently moved. I've lived in Wyoming for 51 years. My great-great-grandfather moved there in the 1800s and opened up a pharmacy that was open for 150 years in our family name. So
Wow.
I lived in the same town in Wyoming, and in Wyoming for my entire life until like 3 months ago. So I'm
Wow.
kind of in this. We moved to Nebraska, and a lot of people are like, that is not a big change. I'm telling you, we live in Omaha where there's 1 million people just in our city, where in Wyoming there's 500,000 for the entire huge state. So it's a big difference.
Wow.
But so I grew up very much in gun culture, and I've always been terrified of guns. Some people are afraid of snakes. Some people are afraid of, heights. I'm probably afraid of those things too. But guns for me have always been, and it's just being around them. Like apparently I've been desensitized to, American culture with movies and things like that. I don't have panic attacks when on someone on screen has a gun. But whenever I'm around a gun, I get really, really nervous. And I think back, and it always makes me sad more than anything. Whenever I see a gun, it's like I just feel sad that that exists. And I realize in Wyoming, we name our guns. We we name our children after guns. Guns are like an extension of the family. There are more bumper stickers about guns than anything else in Wyoming. There's no data to back that up, but I'm certain if I were to do a census of people with bumper stickers, there would be a lot more gun bumper stickers than, let's say, God or my kid's an honor student. So I've grown up around guns, and I've always had this uncomfortable relationship with them. But I have a friend, and I went into his house, and I hadn't seen him in a while. He's a really smart guy, and we see eye to eye in a lot of things. And I went into his basement, and he had this room that he opened up, and it was like something out of a James Bond movie. Just rows and rows of guns, and all kinds of them. Guns I didn't even know existed. Guns, long guns, rifles, shotguns, multiple pistols. Ended up probably over 100 different guns and different. It was a museum of just different instruments of death all around his room, in this like really air controlled, cool room. And he was so excited to tell me the story of each one, almost as if I were to take someone to a place one of the places that I love. Let's say I would take someone to a museum I've been before and be like, oh, look at this piece of art. Isn't this, here's the story behind it. Everything's got a story. All his guns had a little bit of a story to them. And the more he talked about it, the more excited he got about them, the more I had a moment of like, I am having a full on panic attack. And I had to excuse myself to go collect and take a few breaths and then come back in, because I know if I were to say, I'm really uncomfortable being here, it opens up conversations that I know he is not willing to have. I know I'm not really willing to have. And it would lead to argument and debate in which none of us would be satisfied with what the other person would say. And so I sat with that for about a week or two, just sitting with this. Why am I so uncomfortable about this? And I think the reason was I came to this thesis, and then I started writing once I thought of it. It's like, I know in my lifetime, this will always be an issue, I think. I think guns and people, our obsession with them and love of them, and wanting to have more than we reasonably need. And I read somewhere about how many bullets are created in America each year, and like, I know that's going to be part of my life. It's going to be part of my life cycle. Those facts, those are not going away anytime soon.
Mhm.
So I've got to turn the page a little bit from wanting leaders or legislators or whoever to make reasonable decisions to protect life and people and be a safe, and turn more to like, what can I do about it? And what I can do is to turn towards build community. And I think that's what I'm trying to do now. Is I think vulnerability leads to telling our stories. Every time I stopped down this piece specifically, I had to be vulnerable to talk about this, and I told a story. So vulnerability leads to storytelling. Storytelling leads to empathy, and empathy leads to community. For me, it's a 4-step process. And so in that moment, it's like, I know we're not going to ban these giant guns, these bazookas, these things with laser sights on them that I don't even like from a sci-fi movie. Those are not going away. So I can't shut myself off to anyone who has those things. Those are part of our life. And if I want to close people off because they love those things, I'm going to make my world smaller and smaller and smaller. But what I can do is I can talk about how I can talk openly, which I really didn't do when I was in Wyoming very much, because I think I might have been the town pariah. But now I want to talk about it a little bit more openly, and not saying, hey, I want to take these things away from you, but I want people to know why I'm uncomfortable around them. Vulnerability, I tell my story. Maybe there's a person out there who has a gun that they named after their aunt that is sitting on their shelf, and they're like, you know what? Maybe I need to be more sensitive in talking about these weapons in front of other people because I read this person's story about how it makes them uncomfortable. And then I think that helps build community and it draws us together. So I think that's what the point of that post was. I wanted to share. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it seems to me, I mean, I think Bernice and I certainly are old enough to remember the last century. We were born and grew up and young adults in the last century. And it seems to me our relationship in this country with guns has changed dramatically. They seem to, there's almost like well, you call it an obsession. It's almost more than that, where it's, you must have numerous guns. It's all fear-based from what I see, and you must have numerous guns as a sign of your, virility and strength and bravery. And it's quite unnerving. Even the role of the National Rifle Association has changed dramatically from its inception to what it is today, where they used to advocate for, responsible gun ownership and use. And so I just wanted to touch on, what do you mean by bloodlust celibacy? Because there's a difference between, yes, we have a right to guns in this country. That's not going away. And many people, I think a lot of Americans have guns, even those you wouldn't think would have guns, that are on the so-called left. So what is bloodlust celibacy?
For me, it's a personal decision of not allowing myself to become desensitized so much to it. Obviously, I wrote this piece after the horrific, violent events of the last few weeks involving school shootings and celebrities being shot and threats being made. And, over the summer, other awful events have happened of legislature, of political leaders being killed in their houses and things like that. And for me, the news cycle in my own head lasts about 24 hours. I remember when Columbine happened. And for me, I was only about 100 miles away from there. And that lasted in my heart at least 6 months, where I didn't have a day where I didn't think about how awful that was. And every other headline event of violence on a mass scale, it's a diminishing returns for how much I allow that to affect me, or want to even think about what can I do to change it. I remember after Columbine, I was working at a church at the time, back in a different version of my life, when I was working at a Catholic church. And I remember I spent weeks doing prayer services and just for peace and for compassion and for looking out for each other, because there's something I could do about it. And over time, every other single one that happened, every other single mass shooting that's happened, my reaction has become more angry and more, and just surrendering to it. And more like, well, this is the cost of, being in America, or whatever it was. And I was allowing myself to take part in this culture of death. And because I was just saying, this is what it is now. We have lost our way, and this blood is everywhere. And what I'm going to do now, and what I mean by celibacy, is I'm not going to just let it wash over me. Every time I am not going to be afraid to talk about it. I'm going to write about it. I'm not going to take part in using words or just being angry when something comes up. I'm going to try to promote peace, and I'm going to try to foster community. instead of this division. And I've been in my mind over the last few years, and it's been easy to do. One of the reasons I'm slowly trying to escape from Facebook is social media, I think, is perfect for dividing us into bins of people, into pockets
Mm-hmm.
of people, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to target us and advertise to those pockets of people, and it's all really smartly and sinisterly done, to keep us divided. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been divided. I've lived in Wyoming, and I probably resented 75% of the neighbors I lived around because I saw the world so differently than them. So when I mean bloodlust celibacy is, I mean, I'm going to be trying to separate myself from the divisions from 90% of the people that I have been pushing away from my life, and trying to understand them a little bit more. Because the more I keep pushing people away, people I disagree with and don't see the world with, the more separate we're going to get, and the more blood will be spilled because of this attitude I'm continuing to push in my own way. I'm not out there, leading protests or banging gongs, but in my own passive aggressive ways of being a human, I am pushing a good chunk of my neighbors away because I don't see the world the same way they do, and they don't understand me, and we're just pushing each other away. Now, there is that 10% of the people out there that I really believe maybe I should be pushing them away. I'm not saying, oh, we need to all accept everybody and let's all get together and there's nothing wrong. No, there is some really bad actors out there, that I should be not bringing into the campfire circle. But I've allowed that 10 to 15% of people that I should really be, pushing back against. I've let that become a much bigger number than I ever thought I would. And that's kind of what I mean by it. I don't want to join into this culture of division and blood and anger.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up this section and let Bernice jump in here with you use the phrase, we need to see each other as, instead of targets, as kin.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so beautiful,
Yeah.
because that's what
Yeah.
we're doing, is we're seeing each other's targets, we're separating, it's
Oh,
us
yeah.
versus them, and this is all manufactured and
Yes.
manipulated, because reality doesn't really matter anymore. It's the perception of reality, which is easily manipulated, and we're all in our own little silos listening to our favorite talking heads. I got away from that a few years ago.
Yeah.
The corporate media,
Oh, yeah.
manipulation. So I just wanted to mention that, that it's beautiful. We need to start seeing each other as kin, which we are.
Yeah. And we have to hope there's a way out of this. Like, we have to hope. Like, I think what I also think about when I wrote this piece is like, what's next year going to look like? What's 2 years from now going to look like? And I get stuck in the mire of like, well, no, this is just how it is. This is our violent culture. It's like, no, it's the starfish throwing, the person throwing one starfish into the ocean. It's like, you can't save them all, but I saved that one. And so for me, it's like, what can I do in response to these violent, terrifying acts and the way we are treating one another and becoming so angry with one another? Well, what I can do is I can try to build community. And what I need to do first with that is open up my heart a little bit more to people I have closed out of it over the last few years. And really, I do agree, like social media and these things where you can just scroll and it rewires our brain, and we look at things and we get complicated geopolitical information all in a single 30-character tweet. And we're like, oh, I'm now an expert on, economics. It's like, no, we're taking these complicated, hard, gray issues and we're smashing them into a paragraph, and we're just making everyone pick which side you're going to be a part of. And I think the only way out of the situation is realizing that most of us are all on the same damn side. There are some really awful people out there doing awful things and manufacturing trouble, but that's not 90% of us. 90% of us are just kind of all in the same boat, trying to paddle our way to the next bend in the river.
Thanks, John. If I could make a comparison then, in this, it sounds to me almost like an addiction. We are addicted to violence. So you've spoken about addiction yourself from a personal point of view. Do you see any similarities between your own individual self or a person's individual self working on addiction recovery to the kind of recovery that's called forth in our country?
I think what it really is kindness, getting
Mm,
over whatever. And I know that's such a platitude. Like I've had this a conversation with people. It's like, oh, talk about kindness. What a platitude. Yeah, my God, platitude became such an awful word. Yes, kindness is a platitude. It's a beatitude. Whatever word you want to put at the end of kindness, go for it. For me, getting out of whatever mud I've ever been stuck in my life, or cycles of destruction, or despair, or parts of or the gray, or the fog that comes over my brain with depression, or whatever it is, the way out of it for me has always been through self-kindness. I have
mm,
to love myself. And if
mhm.
I don't love myself, nothing else comes from there. I cannot move. I am stuck in the same place. But if I can show myself little acts of kindness a day, cliche as it sounds, I start unfreezing. The thaw starts coming. And I
Mhm.
really think that with one another, as a community, as a society, as a civilization, kindness, kindness. It sounds so hallmark. It sounds like such a nice, easy thing to say. But even in just the kindness of someone who says something, I run retreats and events, and we get into writing, and people share their writing, and it's just, we get to a point where, yes, someone might write something that you completely disagree with.
Right.
And as long as they're not, quoting Mein Kampf or something that is truly awful and evil, like someone might say something that you're like, I don't know, that's not my belief. I grew up with a different belief system. And we have this idea, is like, I need to debate that person right now and own that person right now and win this argument.
Right. Right.
Instead of that, what if we just said, thank you for giving me your perspective, and mean
Mhm.
it? And looking at
Mhm.
each person we encounter as a opportunity to act kindly. So kindness is how I break the addiction cycles inside of me, whether it's mental health or other things. And I think our addiction to division and to blood and to violence, if even 10 people each new day, 10 new people start practicing kindness first before anything else, I mean, that has to mean something.
Mhm. Yeah, you make reference to in this same article a shift in our national soul. And what I hear you sharing now is that um, it's something we can all do. I mean, I can choose to be kind.
Yeah,
I can choose to be kind to myself when I, you know, fall over myself and, do something stupid.
right.
Um, and I can choose to be kind to you. It doesn't mean I agree with you, but I can
Right.
choose to be kind.
Right.
Yeah,
Not every hill is worth dying on. But my gosh, we turn into this speech and debate culture
right,
where everything is like, I gotta own you, I gotta win you, who got the best talking point,
right,
who gets the best YouTube clip. And we're all
right,
trying to win something, but we're all
right,
going to the same place when we die. I mean, however this works, we're all going to live and die, and we're all traveling on the same arc together. Why are we trying to own or defeat anybody? I mean,
right,
one of the things that changed me completely is like the Hubble Space Telescope and the James Webb Telescope and all these things where they look and see how big everything is, how incredibly huge and wondrous our universe is. Even right now, as we started this, we've been talking 30 minutes, multiple galaxies have already started forming right now as we speak. This wave of creation is still out there painting things. And for me, it's like, yeah, we're small in the scope of things, but how we treat each other matters more than anything else in the cosmos. It's like, yes, yeah, we are small. There's so much going on out there, but there's so much importance here in the small little grain of sand that we live in. We're all trapped in here together in this little planet. We're all stuck here together. It's like, but these little moments of kindness between each other are as important as any star or galaxy being formed right now. And we can do that. We can create these things with us. We can create galaxies between us just in conversation and interactions with one another. And for me, that's the work I'm not speaking from on top of the mountain giving a sermon. I am hanging to the cliff face trying to practice what I'm preaching.
Yeah, not every disagreement or different viewpoint calls for, war.
Yeah, yeah,
And I touched on how, we're old enough perhaps to remember things being different, where it was okay to have disagreements with friends and family about politics or social issues or whatnot. But
Yeah.
it occurred to me that, people born in this century are already well into their 20s, and this is all they've really known. So what do you, it's easy for you to talk to me and Bernice and say these things, and we're like, yeah, that's right. We can do this because we've done it before. This is how we used to live, where we would just, more community-based. You don't like everybody, obviously. But
Yes.
disagreements didn't result in a breakdown in relationship, where everybody's your enemy who doesn't think exactly like you. So how do you talk to young people about this who really have never known another world?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great question, because I have three boys, 25, 22, and 19. And so my 25-year-old grew up in 2000. And since 2000, right about then, talk radio had already been going, but right about then, cable news really started kicking into 24-hour talking heads and news cycles. And then by 2005, it was MySpace, and then came Facebook and poured napalm on our entire national discourse and the way we talk to each other. And TikTok and YouTube. And so, yeah, they only know this way of getting information from people online and letting that become their dogma. These little devices, the little phone I have in front of me, is a perfect little brainwashing machine, and I use it all the time. So I'm probably a hypocrite. I use my phone all the time, but there's so many things I get trapped into. Just scroll, scroll, scroll. Oh, scroll, scroll. Oh. So I was talking about with my kids about how do young people get past this? Because you're right, this is all they've ever known for their entire life. And for me, they asked me that same question a couple nights ago, and I didn't have a great answer except for this. And it's a lot about what we talked about, is the fear that you have inside. My kids share a lot of the same beliefs that I have, and I've always encouraged them to, don't just listen to me. I had a really low ACT score. I am not an expert on anything. I'm giving you my perspective. I want you to be curious and to investigate life yourself. But I want you to remain curious about what you know from what you've seen. Number one. So don't take anyone's word for anything online. Go investigate it yourself. If someone tells you should be mad, investigate. Are you mad? Are you actually mad about that? Or are you mad because someone told you to be mad? Are you sad because someone told you to be sad? Instead of looking at your phone to intune how you connect with the world or how you want to interact with people, go inside. We're spending so much time on the outside looking at screens and looking for reactions and looking for hot takes and looking for people who stir the pot. Go inside and ask yourself what you feel and what is going on. Are you afraid? Spend time with that fear. Why is that fear for you? Not because someone on X or Instagram told you why they're afraid. Spend time with your own fear and ask, what is it that I'm afraid of? And then here's the key. After that, you spend time on your own self and say, okay, why am I feeling so grateful today? Someone might tell you, here's a Bible verse of why you should feel grateful. Read that, and then here's why I feel grateful. And then we might spit that exact same thing out to someone else later in the day. I'm grateful because of the sun. Maybe you heard a really lovely sermon about the sun, and now suddenly, but what if you spent that? I was like, okay, what am I grateful for? And you sat down, you came up with your own answers and didn't trust someone else to give you those answers. And you found out for yourself, there's so much more meaning when you do that for yourself and you're not spoon-fed from somebody, another stranger, or even a person you know, or even your father, about how you should feel or how you should look at the world. And then I was trying to get to this. The biggest point of that is in recognizing that exists in other people. This wondrous interior life that I stumbled upon with writing and poetry and all these things, these doors inside of me that were locked shut. And once I started opening them and found all these amazing places to visit in my heart, and complicated, scary, wonderful, heartbreaking, beautiful places in my heart, it exists in 8 billion other people all around the world. People you despise have these same things going on inside of them as you do. And it's about kinship. Yeah, we're all learning this together. And sure, there's plenty of people who are acting like they've done this 30,000 times and they know all the answers and they've done this. But again, we are all 8 billion people stuck on this planet, traveling through space in this endless vacuum of wonder and beauty. And we're all figuring this out together. So as confused as you are inside, those experts are just as confused. They just have a really good way of showing that they're not. So don't trust anyone. Trust yourself more than anyone else, and trust your own intuition, and then allow for other people to have their own perspective that is different than yours.
Yeah, I think boredom doesn't get enough kudos, because we have to allow ourselves to be bored, in order to see the wonders of the universe and our interior lives.
Look at a flower in the front yard that you walk past every day, but spend time with it for 20 minutes. We do this in my writing retreats. We take a walk one day, we walk the same way, and on the last day, we take that walk and we take an hour and a half instead of 30 minutes. It's like, okay, we walked past this thing 5 times this week. What if we spent 10 minutes with this one flower and you looked at it like a journalist and you paid attention to the small little fraction of creation right here in front of you? What happens when you do that? Boredom is amazing. Quietness and stillness is such a wonderful gift. And you're right, it's a very busy, loud, honking, blaring world. And
our smartphones demand all of our, not just a portion, but all of our time. So how on earth can young people discover who they truly are and their own soul expression when it's completely, just always being pulled at by other people's egos coming through the smartphone to them?
And you have to be your own PR firm. I mean, my poor kids, I'm so glad YouTube and Facebook and none of that existed when I was in high school or in college, because people would have a different perspective of me. Like, we're filming each other all the time. We're constantly surveilling each other. And then we're constantly having to be like, okay, here's how exciting and beautiful my life is. We're constantly having to output. And then we see what people output. It's like, I have to mirror that to keep up with other people. It's perfect for our vanity and our egotism. And all of this that we're, that's part of our brain, it's in there. And these phones feed on that. But there is so much wonder that is happening all around us, and specifically in the people in our lives that we just gloss over every day, that we see every day. There is so much beauty in these relationships that we have in our life that we forget about because they're not on this screen in front of us. They're right here sitting next to us on a couch or in a classroom or wherever we meet people every day. There's all these things that are so much more interesting than something that someone's performatively put together for us on a little computer screen.
I've made a little note, John, as you've been speaking and sharing with us. Just words, a couple of words, few words that I think respond to these overarching questions that you believe and offer hope for all of us that we all have, you say, and I personally agree, but nonetheless, that's what you're saying. Here are the words, interiority, courage, although you wouldn't say courage, you're living courage, fear, knowing the fear that comes up, silence, silence, silence. And then you said vulnerability, storytelling, intimacy, community.
Yeah, I mean, when you boil it down, those word clouds, that would be exactly, if you were to take all my poetry or anything I've written, that would likely be the word cloud that would be created from there, because that's exactly right. Those are the things and it's all based on the very first thing we talked about today. Yes, and it's all about saying yes. Yeah. Yes to how complicated this world is. You can't shut off to it. I can't become jaded by it. I can't become callous to it. I'm saying yes to it. I'm saying yes to things that scare me a little bit, that grow my heart and push me a little bit. We're saying yes to community and looking at people not as people who we disagree with, not as enemies, but as people who are just as confused as I am about being on this planet. We're saying yes to intimacy with each other in these relationships. We're saying yes to creativity in the interior life inside of us. It's all about just keep saying yes. Don't say no. And that's what I tell my kids all the time is like, there are things to say no to, but when you're on stage in improv and something comes up, you have to be curious about it and you have to explore it for at least 10 to 20 seconds on stage. You have to give it a couple lines and see if it's going to work. If it doesn't work, okay, let's try something else. But you have to investigate every tug on your heart, because I don't want to die and have all these heart tugs that I didn't pull on to see what could have happened. So it is that first yes.
And so I want to pull out a couple of phrases that I found personally very touching and meaningful. The holes in our hearts are holy sites. Yeah. The holes in our hearts are holy sites. And then another, I don't know how to pass for ordinary. Whoa, what a statement. I don't know how to pass for ordinary. You're a major inspiration there, young man. Here's another phrase that I just loved. I know how to sit with someone in silence until they remember they are not alone.
And all three of those phrases are hard truths for me that didn't happen overnight, that were like glaciers forming over eons of my existence here, of tons of life lessons and things that I had to learn. And each time I wrote those down were revelations to myself. They were the medicine that I needed, not as a sermon or me being like, oh, I have a, look at me, I am so smart. I'm not a guru or a rocket scientist.
Right.
I just, that's why I write in the way that I do, that I'll bump into something. It's like that. Oh, okay. That gives me peace. And then the hope is I throw it out there to the universe and let that land on someone's shore, like a little message in a bottle. And maybe it brings them the same peace it brought me.
Right.
You say you're not
to me like healing, though. It feels to me like healing, a process of healing that we can all participate. And I'm just grateful for you to giving words to that and saying it, so directly and so clearly and unabashedly, because I think we're afraid to share things like that. We're afraid to say, the holes in my heart are holy sites. So thank you.
Thank you. It's just trying to say yes, but thank you for listening to my yeses.
I know. What else? Trying to get in here.
I feel like I'm commandeering this conversation a little bit. Bernice, sorry. We both just love having you on, John. You could say you're not a guru, maybe that's true, but you certainly are wise, and some might call you an elder. And I don't mean that as far as age, but in how you have sort of allowed your life experience to be an alchemy and help you change and grow. And I think there's a real thirst for that. One of the other tragedies I see is not just in young people not being able to discover who they truly are, but people my age who are also entrapped in the doom scrolling and whatnot. And so they're forfeiting their role as elders to the younger generations. And I find that really sad. Now, you've touched on a few things you do, maybe looking at a flower, taking a walk, whatnot, in order to not spiral down the dark path. You say feel every emotion, and I imagine that includes the negative ones. We have to allow those to come to the surface as well without letting them overtake us. I'm wondering, what is some small thing that you would tell people of all ages, really, that they could do today to not spiral into that us versus them, that negativity, that fear, that anger, just to get in touch with their own interiority?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I would tell them a couple things. One is to recognize that I've noticed that how I treat other people, that maybe I get really viscerally angry. People I've never met. Someone might send me a message. Every now and then I'll get someone who sends me a message, say, poetry should be this. And they'll send me like how they think I should be writing it and why and I don't really poetry for me, I didn't really read until I started writing it. So I'm still very much a neophyte in the poetry world. I'm not academic. I don't have any initials after my name. So every now and then I will get very triggered by someone who will write me and be like, yeah, this is why you're doing it wrong, and send me something like that. And then I create this whole thing in my mind where I'm really mad at this person, and I'm really, really, really angry. And then I wait about 24 hours to respond, to 48 hours to respond. And I realize that season has passed, and all of a sudden it's spring again in my heart. And I'm not quite as angry or as viscerally mad as I was 48 hours ago. And that season is, and then if I wait another 24 hours, then actually it's starting to be summer now inside of me. And now I feel like I can approach this conversation with not me being defensive and not me trying to like win whatever this duel that in my mind, this high noon duel that just started happening in my mind. Instead of having a hot take and finding ways to critique this person back, I approach it more with like, isn't it beautiful to be able to have conversations like this? How boring would it be if I saw the world the same way you did? Because I think when that person read my poetry and sent me a message like that, they allowed to respond during winter. And they're like, I'm going to let him have it right now. And it's going to be cold, and it's going to be a blizzard, and I'm going to give him an avalanche of snow and ice and all of that. But had they waited 24 hours or 48 hours, maybe they would have come at it in a different approach that would have been a little bit easier for me to hear. And there might be some real wisdom in what they're saying, but the problem is it's so cold and so frosty that I'm not listening to it. I'm just trying to, build a fire, or run away. And so that's what I think is like, for all things, there's going to be a season. And I'm trying when I'm going through parts in my heart that are good or bad or whatever, even wonderful. And that's one of the interesting things when we write with people. It's like sometimes people have a harder time writing about things that bring them joy or make them proud or happy, because they have this thing, I don't deserve to write about this. I can think of it in my head, but if I write about what I'm proud about, what I love about myself, I mean, think about that. Sitting down right now to write about what you love about yourself is scarier than writing about what makes you mad today. And so writing about things that make us, we love about ourselves, or we're grateful for, I find people struggle with that quite a bit. But just know that tomorrow I might love something different about myself. That season will last for a day or so. These things, these feelings we have pass through us. They're weather systems. And same relationally with people. These people I'm divided from, I'm really hopeful this is just the winter of civilization. And the less I respond angrily during winter, the better my response will be if I just let this first wave pass through me.
And with that, I have to wish you a wonderful fall equinox.
Oh, yes, I know.
Right upon us.
That's one of my favorites. I love fall. So yeah, because it's kind of in between. It's like we're kind of cold, but we're still can have warm days. But here's a little taste of winter. It's kind of all of it at once. And fall is my favorite because that's our hearts. Like we have 4 seasons in 1 hour in our heart. And so, but that's for me. It's like it's all passing through us. Again, unfold, river, flow this way. Don't stay in the same place. Our emotions change 30 times an hour. Honor each one.
I want to thank you for the phrase that I'm now going to use anytime I have a disagreement with somebody, is that I'm not going to allow the high noon duel in my head to sweep me, which could only come from someone raised out west. That's great.
That's the vision I have. It was whenever I'm mad at someone's like, okay, partner, we're gonna here we go, and like I just want you to win, because we have this thing, we have to competitive America, win, be number one. I can't get beaten in an argument. I have to have the last word. It's like, no, if I just wait a little bit, I can be mad and I'll write about my anger and I'll sit there, but that doesn't mean I need to give that to somebody else. Like, I can be mad. I'm not saying deny how you feel and let them take advantage of you. No, I'll respond. But I'm not going to respond while I'm feeling that way, because all I'm doing is passing on the hurt they gave me back to them. I can defend myself better in 24 hours than a hot take 5 minutes later after I receive something like that. And that's what I'm trying to teach myself over and over again with all interactions with people. Someone might say something that I don't like, I can absorb it and sit with it for a while and then come back later and say, this is how I see it in my way, that's softer and more accessible for them. So maybe they can join me around the campfire and we can build community together.
Mm.
Beautiful.
I'd love to be with you to talk about writing some poetry about how I love myself. I think that's fabulous.
Oh, it's tricky. It's fun. It's fun, but
Fabulous.
it's so hard. It's the
Yeah,
hardest part
yeah.
of when I do these things. Like people can come up with things they don't like about themselves. I can write for hours
Right,
about that.
right,
But when
right,
we write
right.
about what we love about ourselves, and when we look
Wow,
in the
what comes up?
mirror,
Whoa,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
what would a child, what would we want a child to see in us when they see us? It's like
Mm.
things like that. It's hard to do, but I tell you, for me, when I write, it's such, I have to remind myself, I always put in the margins, am I being kind? And maybe that's the synopsis of this entire conversation we've had today.
Yeah,
Are we
yeah,
being kind enough? And but I always write it when I'm into a piece and I know I'm feeling it. I'm like, man, this isn't going on. I always have to write, is this my voice? Is this who I am? And then the other side is like, am I being kind? And those are the things that I think are important for all walks of life. Is this your
yeah,
voice? Is this your authentic self? And are you being kind with that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Oh no,
Oh,
you guys ask the best questions. You challenge me. You make me dig a little bit deeper, and I'm really, really grateful for this. I'm so honored.
so as I am as delighted to be with you this time as was last time. It's just wonderful. We want to give you an opportunity to share how people might reach you, how you want them to reach you, and we can tell us what that is right now.
Oh sure. So I currently am the hypocrite that I am. I'm still on Facebook because that's where I accidentally built my sandcastle years ago.
Right.
And like I before, this is maybe when a softer version of Facebook exists in social media. So I do I'm on Facebook quite a bit still. I post every day. I'm trying to throw a little bit of joy, a little bit of sparkles of light into that cesspool daily. But I am on Substack. It's called John. You
Yeah.
can look for John Roedel around the campfire. I'm trying to get my work into people's email boxes instead of through an algorithm.
Okay.
So, and I'm on Instagram, but so those are the big places. There's a website, John Roedel, really creatively named, johnroedel.com, where you can find out more information. Have published a few books in the last 2 years since we've
Yeah.
spoken, and then you will be the first to know this. Around holidays, I'm actually releasing a new book on like poems/blessings, really short bits about thresholds, about as we're moving into a new threshold in this world in our life, and just little
Nice.
poems and blessings for that I'm going to release sometime around December or so.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
Thank you for
Wonderful.
telling us. Wow.
Yeah,
A
you guys
blessing.
are fresh. I mean, I just decided yesterday I'm going to get it done before Christmas, so you guys are fresh off the press. News there that
Wow.
yeah, it's
We got
currently
to
right now it's called Anoint This Threshold.
Okay.
But I might change it 19 times between now and when I actually release it. But that's the current working title. But I realized I had about 40 of these small little short poems, like the one you read about the holes in our heart and things like that. These short one-page things that are not my typical writing style. That I finally looked at. It's like, man, I've been writing a lot of these lately, and maybe
Yeah.
there's a reason. Maybe we need them
Yeah.
out before 2026 for me to read, and so that's what I'm working on.
Wonderful. A few, we're going to have to take that standard all day, but I suspect that's not going to happen. So we really need to ask you to help us close our conversation. And if you would, do you have a favorite quote or something you would like to refer to kind of bring
Yeah,
us?
I have this will take 40 seconds, but it's one of the
Oh,
poems.
please take longer than
Oh,
40.
great.
You
It's
can
a
have
poem that I
45.
wrote
You're good.
that is about kind of my journey that I'm on right now. And
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
I didn't think about it until we were talking, and I just looked it up here because I thought, what would be a nice way to close? It's
Nice.
very much a lot about what we talked about. So I don't name my pieces. We'll just call this poem number one for us.
Okay.
The places in our heart. Oh, this is the one I want. That was the one you're talking about, the holy sites in our heart, which I really do think these little scars and places inside of us are wonderful places for us to learn from. That's a great
Yes.
one. And I'll share that
Yes.
one another time. But this one's the one that really fits into what we've been talking about. Vulnerability doesn't mean telling others what happened to us from across a cafe table or from behind a microphone and then going home from that experience feeling just as alone as we did before. For me, vulnerability means allowing our human heart blanket to get sewn to other human heart blankets. It's about connection. We don't share for status, we do it for synergy. We don't confess for clout, we do it for community. We tell our tale and then invite other people to tell theirs. It's the sacred cycle of storytelling. We gather in a circle of trust and we say, here is my journey. And then we listen to all the other journeys that are shared. We take space and then we give space. We pour and then we absorb. We speak and then we listen. We are storytellers, but we're also witnesses. Vulnerability isn't just about grave digging in our past to expose all of our skeletons. No, it's about sewing quilts. Here is my patch. Here is your patch. Here is their patch. Here is us. Here is our story.
Perfect.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Thank you guys so much. You're amazing. Keep those ripples of joy and wisdom and love going.
Thank you. You too, John. Thank you so much.
We'll see you next year.
Oh, you got it. It'll be
Not before.
We'll have so many things to catch up on.
That's it. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Blessings to you. Blessings to you.